Welcome to Threads of Truth, where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation. Tonight, we're delving into a disappearance it's haunted Australia for decades. A really baffling story.
It really is. We're talking about Marion Barter. She was 51, a teacher, a mother living in Southport, Queensland. And in late spring 1997, she tells everyone she's off for a year. A big holiday in Europe.
Yeah, and she wasn't just saying it. She actually took major steps. Sold her house, quit her job, looked like a totally clean break, a new beginning.
Exactly, setting the stage for this grand adventure.
But here's where it gets really chilling. Marion never came back, and her family, they spent more than 20 years searching, digging, and what they found was just this maze of contradictions, things that just didn't fit.
It pulls you right in, doesn't it? The core question is, what actually happened? Did she just decide to vanish, start a completely new life somewhere else? Or was it something much darker, more complex, even sinister? That's what we're trying to unpack today, looking at all the information available.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. To really get a handle on this, we need to understand who Marion Barter was before she disappeared. Our sources paint a picture of a pretty established person, right? 51 years old, a teacher in Southport, Queensland. Not someone likely to just evaporate.
No, exactly. She had roots, a respected career. She was part of the community. And crucially, she was a mother, 2 children. That connection, that family tie, makes the idea of her just walking away voluntarily and, well, it makes it incredibly hard for her loved ones to accept.
Imagine that feeling. Your mother just gone.
And there's another layer, too. Maybe not huge at the time, but notable. She was the former wife of Johnny Warren.
The Socceroos player.
That's right, the Australian national soccer team captain. So she wasn't entirely unknown, even if that connection wasn't front and center when she first went missing. It adds a sort of texture to her public persona.
Okay, so a settled life, family ties, even a minor public connection. Not the profile of someone who just drifts away, typically. Now let's look at the lead up. June 1997 is when she leaves. But in the months before that, she makes these really big moves, selling her home.
Yeah, and that's not a spur-of-the-moment thing, is it? Selling a house takes time, planning, lawyers. It's a very deliberate act.
A very permanent feeling act.
And then she also formally resigns from her teaching position. Again, not just taking leave, resigning.
So these two things together, they really paint a picture, don't they?
Yeah.
Someone methodically dismantling their old life.
Absolutely. And you can see why, for the initial investigators, this would strongly suggest she chose to leave. It looks like a very planned departure.
But then there's this other detail. Her family noticed a change in her behavior. She became uncharacteristically secretive.
That's what they reported, yes. More withdrawn, less open about her plans than usual.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone needs privacy, but a sudden shift like that, right before leaving, it makes you wonder. Is it secrecy about an exciting new life or something else?
It definitely adds a wrinkle. It could fit the planning and escape narrative, but it also plants a seed of doubt, doesn't it?
So the last time anyone definitely saw her was June 22nd, 1997. She got dropped off at a bus stop in Southport.
Right, heading to the airport. The plan, as she had told everyone, was this big year-long trip starting in England, Europe. A fresh start.
That was the story she gave. Clear, exciting even.
And for a little while, it seemed like that's exactly what was happening. Her family got a postcard.
Ah, yes. From England, right? Late July 97.
That's the one. And you can imagine the relief that must have brought. Confirmation she'd arrived, she was okay, starting her adventure.
Yeah, it must have calmed some nerves. They'd have thought, okay, she's off doing her thing. The illusion was holding.
Until it wasn't. Because what came next? Well, it completely fractured that illusion. This is where the story takes a sharp turn.
What?
They discovered she'd created a whole new identity. Legally.
A new identity? How?
Back in May 1997, just before she left, Marion had officially changed her name. By deed poll.
Wow. Okay, a deed poll. That's serious. That's a formal legal process to change your name.
It is. And the name she chose was quite something. Florabella. Natalia Marion Remackle.
Florabella. Remackle. That's a very distinctive, almost theatrical.
It certainly stands out. And she didn't just change the name. She got a new passport issued under Florabella Remackle.
Okay. So selling the house, quitting the job, and legally changing her name and getting a new passport.
You see how that piled up for the police? It screamed voluntary disappearance, someone actively creating a new persona, seemingly cutting all ties.
Yeah, I can totally see how that would cement their initial theory. Case closed, right? Woman wanted a new life, went and got one.
It certainly seemed that way on the surface. It provided a neat, if perhaps sad for the family, explanation.
So there's always a but in these cases, isn't there?
Almost always. And this but is huge. It involves her finances.
Okay, what happened with her money?
Well, remember, she's supposedly settling into her new life in Europe from late July 1997 onwards.
Right, enjoying the proceeds from her house sale, maybe.
Except in August and September 1997, her bank account back in Australia starts getting emptied.
Emptied. How much are we talking?
Over $100,000. Systematically withdrawn, likely most, if not all, of her savings, including the house money.
$100,000. Okay, that's not pocket money. That's significant. But maybe she needed it transferred.
Here's the kicker. The withdrawals weren't happening in London or Paris. They were happening in Byron Bay and Burleigh Heads.
Wait, back in Australia.
Back in Australia, coastal towns not far from where she used to live.
Okay, hold on. How is that possible if she's in Europe? You'd need her card, her PIN,
Yeah.
her presence most likely for amounts that large back then.
Precisely. This discovery blew massive holes in the Happy New Life Abroad story. It raised immediate, serious red flags. The logistics just didn't make sense. How was her money being taken out in Australia if she wasn't there?
This completely changes the picture. If she wanted to disappear, why come back secretly? Why drain her account from Australia? It's illogical for a voluntary escape.
It points to something else entirely. And it leads to the suspicion that she did return to Australia unannounced.
Is there proof of that?
Well, the sources indicate that her new passport, the one under the name Florabella Natalia Marion Remakel, was apparently used to re-enter Australia around that same time frame, August-September 97.
So she comes back under the radar, using the new name, tells nobody, and then her money vanishes from Australian locations.
That's the sequence of events that emerged. This alleged secret return combined with the very suspicious financial activity. It just deepens the mystery and makes the simple voluntary disappearance theory seem, well, almost impossible to sustain on its own.
It feels much more ominous now.
It certainly does. Which brings us, unfortunately, to the problems with the initial police investigation.
Right, you mentioned they stuck with the voluntary theory for years.
For far too long, according to later reviews and the eventual inquest. Because they started with that assumption backed by the house sale, the job resignation, the name change, the investigation wasn't treated with the urgency it might have been otherwise.
What did that mean in practice?
It means the investigation was later described as inadequate, even botched. When you think someone left willingly, you don't necessarily pour resources into immediate intensive forensic work or tracking every possible lead with the same vigor as a suspected abduction or murder.
So opportunities were missed.
Tragically, yes. Think about 1997. CCTV wasn't ubiquitous like today, but bank cameras existed. Witness memories fade. Potential forensic evidence degrades. If those large withdrawals involved her under duress or something happened to her after returning, those crucial early days and weeks were the time to capture that evidence.
And because the case was flagged as voluntary, that just didn't happen.
Not with the necessary intensity. And the consequence is that crucial evidence was likely lost forever. Vital pieces of the puzzle just vanished with time.
That's devastating for the family. To know that answers might have been there, but weren't pursued properly.
It left them in limbo for over 2 decades, fighting for the case to be taken seriously. It's a stark example of how an initial assumption can derail an entire investigation.
Okay, so with all this complexity, it's no surprise various theories have sprung up. Let's look at them. The voluntary disappearance theory, we've discussed the pros and cons.
Right. Pros. The house sale, the job resignation, the legal name change, the passport, actions she took seemingly pointing to a planned departure.
Cons. The huge unexplained bank withdrawals back in Australia after she left, and the strong suggestion of a secret return. It just doesn't align with the simple escape narrative. The finances are the biggest stumbling block for this theory.
It forces you to consider alternatives, which leads to the next major theory. The possibility she was a victim of a scam, specifically a romance scam or fraud.
Okay. What's the basis for that?
This really gained traction later. Sources revealed Marion was apparently in a secret relationship before she left with a man named Rick Bloom.
Rick Blum. And who is he?
He's described as a Belgian national and, crucially, someone with a documented history, a history of allegedly conning vulnerable women, often through romantic manipulation.
Oh, so a known pattern of behavior. That's significant.
Very significant. It provides context. This wasn't just a random boyfriend. It was someone potentially operating with a specific predatory motive.
And does the weird name Floribela Remakel fit into this?
Potentially, yes. This is quite intriguing. The name Remakel might point towards Luxembourg. There's speculation it could connect Marion, perhaps via Bloom or his associates, to a network of European con artists or fraudsters. The name itself might have been suggested to her or part of a larger scheme.
Like giving her an identity that fits within their world, maybe.
Possibly, or making her feel part of something new and European. It suggests a level of manipulation where she might have been convinced to take these steps, sell the house, change her name, believing it was for a shared future, but was actually being set up to be defrauded.
That makes a disturbing kind of sense. It could explain why she did things that seemed counterintuitive later.
It could. And it leads directly into the darkest theory: foul play.
Because if she was being scammed,
Things could have gone terribly wrong. The timing and nature of those huge withdrawals over $100,000 are highly suspicious. It feels less like someone accessing their own funds freely and more like potential coercion or exploitation. Why drain everything so suddenly back in Australia?
so the foul play theory suggests she might have been harmed after that secret return.
That's the postulate, yes. That her return wasn't voluntary in the way she might have initially planned her departure, that she came back, perhaps was forced to access the money or accessed it under duress and then met with foul play, possibly connected to the person or people involved in getting that money.
The money becomes the motive, essentially.
It appears to be a central element, yes. The sudden depletion of her life savings right after her reappearance in Australia is a very strong indicator that her disappearance wasn't just about starting over, but about her assets. And tragically, perhaps, about silencing her afterwards.
This whole case really underscores the power of media and public interest, doesn't it?
Mm.
Especially with cold cases.
Absolutely. The podcast, The Lady Vanishes, was instrumental here.
How so?
Before that podcast, Marion's case was largely dormant, filed away, considered voluntary by many official accounts. The podcast didn't just bring it back into the public eye, it actively investigated.
They found new leads.
They did. They uncovered potential links, explored connections to European con artists like Bloom in a way that seemed to genuinely push the official investigation forward. It showed how dedicated journalism, even outside traditional newsrooms, can make a real difference. The public response was huge.
Yeah, it really captured the public imagination, this story. It shows how one unsolved mystery can just resonate so deeply.
It does. And at the center of keeping that flame alive was Marion's family, particularly her daughter, Sally Layden.
Her dedication seems incredible.
It's extraordinary. Sally fought relentlessly for years against what she saw as an inadequate initial investigation, against the voluntary label, just refusing to let her mother be forgotten. Her persistence was a major driving force behind the renewed focus.
She essentially had to become an investigator herself.
In many ways, yes. It highlights how families often bear the burden of seeking justice when the system initially fails them. Her determination is really a core part of the story.
Okay, let's try and pull these threads together now. Analyzing the likelihood of these theories, especially with the benefit of hindsight and later findings. There was a coronial inquest, wasn't there? Years later.
Yes, there was, and its findings were critical.
What did it conclude?
Firstly, and most importantly, the coroner found that Marion Barter was likely deceased.
Okay, so officially she's not just missing.
Correct. That finding shifts the entire framework. It moves it firmly into the realm of suspected homicide, not just a person who wandered off.
Did the inquest name anyone?
It made a very pointed statement about Rick Bloom. The coroner stated that Bloom does indeed know more than he has admitted about Marion's disappearance.
Wow, that's a direct hit. Naming him as a person of interest who's likely withholding information.
It's a very strong statement coming from an official inquest. It puts him right at the center of continued scrutiny.
But did the inquest determine how she died? Or where?
No, that's the heartbreaking gap. While concluding she was likely deceased and pointing a finger at Bloom, the coroner couldn't definitively determine the cause, place, or manner of her death. The specifics remain unknown.
So, presumed dead, a key person likely knows more, but the how and where are still missing pieces.
Exactly. It leaves this agonizing uncertainty. But weighing all the evidence that has emerged, especially the financial chaos in Australia, the secret return, the connection to Bloom and his history, the romance scam leading to foul play theory seems the most plausible.
It just fits the bizarre sequence of events better than voluntary disappearance.
Far better. The draining of the money, the secrecy, the timing, it aligns much more closely with the scenario of manipulation, exploitation, and a potentially fatal outcome rather than someone freely choosing a new life.
This case also really shines a light on how missing persons investigations worked, or perhaps didn't work, back in the 90s.
It's become almost a case study, unfortunately. It shows how an initial misclassification labeling it voluntary based on those early, seemingly clear-cut actions could have devastating long-term effects.
The botched investigation, as the inquest called it.
Right, because that label meant less urgency, fewer resources allocated immediately, and that meant lost opportunities. Evidence that might have existed in 1997, bank CCTV clarity, witness memories, potential forensic traces related to her return wasn't pursued aggressively enough at the time.
And that evidence is just gone now.
Mostly, yes. Time erodes these things. It makes solving the case decades later exponentially harder. It really highlights the challenges families face when trying to get answers so long after the fact, battling against that initial lack of momentum.
You could argue, couldn't you, that the initial voluntary label led to a kind of miscarriage of justice. It set the investigation on the wrong track from the start.
I think the family certainly feels that way, and many observers would agree if your starting assumption is wrong. If it prevents the right questions being asked and the right resources being used early on, then the whole process can be compromised right from the beginning. It's a systemic issue with profound personal consequences.
And those consequences, the personal toll on the family must be just unimaginable.
Absolutely. Sally Layden's fight, the family's fight, it's been over 25 years of uncertainty, grief, and frustration. Fighting for answers, fighting for Marion's memory.
Not knowing.
Yeah.
It must be a unique kind of torture.
It truly is. The lack of closure, the constant what-ifs. The sources talk about that heartbreaking reality that some truths, especially when lost to an inadequate initial investigation, might genuinely never be fully revealed. Living with that ambiguity is an immense burden.
Is the investigation still active now?
Yes, thankfully. It's important to mention the NSW state coroner recommended the case be referred to the State Crime Command's Unsolved Homicide Team.
So it's being treated as an unsolved homicide, actively.
That's the implication. It shows that even after all this time, and despite the initial failings, the search for truth hasn't been completely abandoned. There's still an official effort to find answers, to resolve Marion Barter's case.
It shows these cases don't just fade away, especially when families keep pushing.
And when new information or perspectives like those brought by the podcast can reignite interest and potentially uncover new angles, the threads are still there, however tangled.
So, Marion Barter's disappearance. It really is this intricate knot. A new identity, a fortune vanished, the shadow of this con man figure. It's a story full of contradictions, the family's enduring pain, and a justice system still searching for a final answer.
The threads are still being pulled, meticulously examined, but her story really makes you think, doesn't it, about the hidden vulnerabilities people might have, even when their lives seem stable, and the lengths others might go to exploit those vulnerabilities, whether for money or, well, we still don't know the full story behind that fresh start. It forces us to look beneath the surface.
It really does. Next time on Threads of Truth, we're stepping inside a luxury Canadian hotel and exploring the eerie legend of Room 873, the room that supposedly doesn't exist. Is it an urban myth, a cover-up, or something stranger still? Join us then.